May 26th, marks the occasion of this television station's 21st birthday. Now, for some, that may seem like a long time. For others, it seems like only yesterday. The truth is, we've earned the key to the door, and we're very proud of it. To be honest, the program that you're about to see is at times a little self-indulgent, but there again, you're only 21 once. So we trust that you'll forgive us if we do occasionally taper off into that odd lapse. These are the years that were. It takes us back to the black and white days of television, the days when videotape was unheard of. A period that's been aptly described as the golden years of television, a time when live TV was king, and the people within the industry were very green. We've come a long way since the early 60s, and in the process, we have learnt a heck of a lot. Viewers have seen the advent of videotape recordings taking over from shows that were for years presented live. It was in 1975 that television took on its greatest challenge, and that, of course, was the changeover to colour transmission. Since then, 2-inch videotape has been superseded by a superior format, and news film replaced by portable video equipment called ENG. These days, technology within the television industry is changing at a dramatic rate. Satellite and over-the-air pay television are now only just around the corner. There's no doubt that we are in the very early stages of a video communications revolution, and it really is difficult to imagine just what the next 21 years may bring, not only for us here at Channel 9, but for the entire television industry.
On the east coast to as far west as Marrawar. Now opening for our first day of transmission on this Saturday, May 26th, 1962. The viewing lineup commences in a few moments with the Mickey Mouse Club. This will be followed at 6:45 by the latest news from the TNT9 newsroom, read by Bruce Farrow. At 7 o'clock, Graham Smith introduces the Governor of Tasmania, Lord Rowallan, to perform the official opening of TNT9. Our 7:30 program is The Flintstones, an animated comedy about a Stone Age family. At 8 o'clock, it's Variety with the BP Super Show, featuring the Moscow State Variety Theatre. Jazz musician Dave Brubeck performs in a half-hour concert at 9 o'clock, followed at 9:30 by our Saturday night movie, Two Guys from Milwaukee.
Things have certainly come a long way since that late autumn day in 1962, when an audience that would be difficult to estimate witnessed the first full evening of television transmission on TNT Channel 9. The Menzies government of 1959 called for licence applications to transmit commercial television programs to the North and Northwest area. The licence was eventually granted by the Broadcasting Control Board to Northern Television Limited, chaired by Sir Giles Chippendale. Mr. Arthur Evans was appointed to the position of Managing Director and set about the mammoth task of establishing studio and transmitter facilities early in 1960, 2 years prior to the first transmission. A site in Watchorn Street was chosen as the most suitable for the studio complex. Mount Barrow was the logical spot to place the transmitter tower and equipment, as TNT9 was in a unique position of serving a population that spread over an enormous coverage area. To guard against the problem of altitude, special equipment was designed using advice and assistance from other parts of the world.
One of the major things I remember is crawling around the top of Mount Barrow, and we were looking for sites. It's a very difficult place to find a site in northern Tasmania.
Well, Jim, when I first arrived here, I remember entering the door into what is now the master control room, which was then an outside door, and there was rain dripping down the passageway and a whole lot of builders' paraphernalia kicking around the outside door. That door is now well internal to the building, and that was the stage on which we started to install the plant, which is currently still the master control room. The studio was not yet finished.
That's the thing, of course, most people know about, the studio.
Yes, that was started to be equipped, I think, very early January 1962. I think that'd be right. We about 5 months before we came on air, and that was a fair sort of an exercise because the floor had just been laid to within about a 1/16 of an inch of being level over its full 60 by 40 feet area. The lighting grid was part of the actual roof structure in effect, and that was a fairly limited facility, and it's only just in recent years, quite frankly, that we've made any significant changes in that area.
I came up here with Mr. Evans, who was manager at that time,
Yeah.
and he showed me the big long slab of cement. It included 70 acts. He said, "Where do you think we'll put the darkroom, Max?" Well, you can imagine what I could try to think or what to say. Wouldn't have a clue.
The opening date of Saturday, May 26, draws closer. Numerous problems have occurred and been overcome preparing for the first transmission. Retailers in northern Tasmania experience record sales of television receivers to the extent where supplies run short. A report in the Launceston Examiner of May 26, 1962 stated that distributors of TV sets had been placed in an embarrassing situation. The opening of TNT9 has created an unprecedented demand for sets. AWA and Healing were working double shifts, endeavouring to keep up with the demand, and the manufacturers of antennas were out of stock. For the staff of around 35 technicians, clerks, salesmen, management and on-air personalities, the first big test arrived on opening night, Saturday, May 26th, when the channel was officially opened by the Governor of Tasmania, Lord Llewellyn. In his opening speech, Lord Llewellyn outlined how the patterns of life in the community would change with the advent of television. He went on to say that television creates a greater demand for books by giving viewers an appetite for more knowledge of the places, ideas, facts and people it introduced them to. We don't know whether a greater demand for books was created or not. However, the high cost and shortage of TV sets certainly inspired northern Tasmanians who didn't have access to television to crowd in front of shop windows to experience the delights of programs such as these.
The Lucy Show.
I can't get the $3,000 for the down payment.
Oh, Eddie. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, I'll just have to tell Mr. Finley to sell the place to somebody else.
He can't sell it to anybody else. Tell him how much it means to you.
Mr. Finley wants cash. Where's a pug like me gonna raise $3,000?
Mr. Mooney.
What do you want?
Oh. Oh, Mr. Mooney.
Eddie Riffle. What up, you?
You don't have to defend me, Mr. Mooney. He's a friend.
Jackie Gleason. The Honeymooners.
Don't you think you let him out a little too much?
I haven't started yet. Mother doesn't hate you, Ralph. It's just your imagination.
My imagination? My imagination? I suppose it was my imagination the day we got married. And she went around the reception telling that joke about me to everybody. I suppose that was my imagination.
What joke?
You know what joke. You remember the joke.
I don't remember, Ralph.
Oh,
What
yes,
joke?
you do. She ran around to everybody, said, "I'm not losing a daughter, I'm gaining a ton."
What are we going to do?
What are we going to do, Dr. Kane? You were the physician in charge. You're on duty. What are you going to do?
I'm not quite sure, Doctor. I've never managed a case like this. I've only been on the service a few days.
But you are allegedly a doctor. You've completed medical school. You've interned on other services. Are you here to learn the practice of medicine or hysterics?
So just let life pass you by when we're rolling high in the sky.
Tonight we invite you to get up off your chairs, loosen up your limbs, and join in with our own Sue Breaker.
Let's fluctuate the flab, shall we? Now, I want you all to get your gear up and follow me. Not here, cheeky. Now, I always say, if you look after your body will look after you, dears. So I want you all stripped, right? Oh, here we go. Not bad, eh? I didn't. Didn't what? I didn't pay $1 to come in. The manager's my friend. He's my third best friend, the manager is. Yes, he's my third best friend. You're my second best friend, and Brian's my best friend.
Can I get this straight? Look, I am not your second best friend.
What a thing to say. What a horrible thing to say.
Smile, Don, you smile. You know this old world is a great world after all. Smile, Don, you smile. And right away watch Lady Luck pay you a call.
Well, it doesn't have blank cartridges. Maybe he was in on the job and he was double-crossed.
Combat. Starring Rick Jason. And Vic Morrow.
Let's go.
Why?
That wine cellar's no bump shelter. A hit up here will be just as bad down there. What about a near miss up here? You can get hit by glass or flying debris. And go below, both of you.
We gave him the facts, John. Don't be too smug, mate. It's just the luck of the game that you're standing there instead of me.
What's all that about?
John and I went to training college together.
What happened?
He didn't make it. Why not?
Unreliable, it'd be my guess. He stinks of booze.
How'd you do? I'm taking you to the Roaring 20 for a true bird's eye view of the Roaring 20.
The Roaring 20s, starring Reason, Donald May, Dorothy Provine, and Gary Vincent.
Let's dance, huh? Oh, help me, I'm poisoned. Oh, I'm sick.
The pin. You have to take the pin out.
Maverick. Starring James Garner.
Will you listen to me, you mule-headed maverick?
I'm listening.
He hates you, I tell you. Himself that tried to kill you, and he'll do it again. You've got to get out of here.
Donna, see if Paul Drake's still in his office.
Mr. Mason, you're going to help me?
I was always going to, Miss Blair. Before we decide to proceed, however, there are a few things I'd like to check on first.
We have a knockout show again for you today that we're going to enjoy presenting. I hope you're going to enjoy watching.
Yes, sir, that's my baby. No, sir, I don't mean maybe. Yes, sir, that's my baby now.
The Allen Brothers have written the flip side of their new pie release, and I think you'll like it very much. It's called There's No Need, the Allen Brothers.
There's no need to stay away from me. There's no blame for you not loving me.
I went to a late night driving, which terrific.
Oh, they can be fun.
But I went to one which started at 12 o'clock, and I was the only one there, truly. For about 3/4 of an hour, I was the only car.
Oh, you probably thought you were the only one there. They're all there. No, you know, like this, the engine to fix and all that, and you've... I come up for air occasionally. The destruction of the British Embassy in Jakarta on Malaysia Day, September 16th, 1963, did more than make headlines all over the world. It signaled Indonesian anger at Britain's strong support for the new nation of Malaysia. It gave notice that Indonesia would continue to resist the peaceful establishment of Malaysia. The action against the British Embassy came to the accompaniment of an ominous sound. The tramp of 100 million pairs of feet, as the fifth largest group of peoples on Earth served notice of its entry into the arena of power politics.
Years of television in northern Tasmania saw a new breed of personality arise on the local scene with the advent of the on-air presenter. Channel 9 introduced 4 people to TV viewers in northern Tasmania: Bruce Farrow, Joyce Wayne, Rod Thurley and David McQuestion.
David, to go back 21 years, you auditioned for the job as sporting commentator at Channel 9. Can you remember it?
I remember it fairly well. I was pretty nervous. I came up on a night to audition. I had an old jumper on and a pair of jeans, and I walked up a plank where the front steps now are to audition, and got the surprise of my life to look into the studio. You could look into the studio through a glass door, or a door with a glass in it, and there were people auditioning with dinner suits on, and I went back out to my car and did my hair and took my sloppy jumper off and found a sports coat and put on. And I got the surprise of my life when I got the job.
Bruce, it's been a long time since I've seen you, and I look and I see a man with a pipe and it all comes back. How important was the pipe as a trademark?
It wasn't a conscious thing, Jim. It was just part of me, and I guess it became accepted as part of that. Much, I might add, to the delight of one guy in Brisbane, in Launceston, who sold pipes.
It was in Brisbane Street, I think, the one you're
talking about.
Yeah,
it was, exactly. That's right. Thank you for the saving. He bought 2 or 3 commercials a year, and he sold thousands of pipes, only because this idiot sitting up there, you know, on the screamers, use one as an aid. I still do, you know. It's got an extendable tube and you can use it as a crutch when your sciatica's bad, you know. It's almost got to that stage.
You were the very first man to appear from Channel 9 anywhere, on anything. Is that correct?
No, it's not quite correct, because, strange to remember, on opening night, on that station, I was the first permanent newsreader, presenter, interviewer, the whole bit. But for some reason which I've never quite understood, they took a very well-known radio personality to actually put the station to air. So he had the first half hour. I didn't.
There was a tremendous potential for error then.
Of course, yes.
And in fact, I suppose, we should have then been delighted that there were so few errors.
Well, it's always nice to be invited to the home of somebody who has done well. Such is the case with former Channel 9 announcer Wayne Brown, and as you can see by the rather illustrious surroundings, Wayne has done very well. He is now very involved with the radio station in Melbourne. But of course we'd rather talk about what happened many, many years ago. Wayne, going back to the days of Channel 9.
Can I just get one thing in there, Jim? I always knew that the overtime I earned with TNT9 would pay off one day, you see, so I kept a little savings account, and it's helped a bit. So
isn't that marvellous?
Nice to have you
I should have tried it. Lovely to be invited into your home. Thank you for that. Wayne, taking back many, many years, what do you remember from your days at Channel 9, as I think you were a newsreader?
That's right, Jim. I did quite a number of news shifts on TNT9 in those early days. I remember them as probably some of the most professional TV days, because you only had a couple of cameras then, and the things that people like Fred Archer and Michael Mortimer did with cameras in those days was unreal. But there were a few other things. I remember I was reading news on a Saturday night for quite some time, and at the same time I was doing a program on 70X, hosting the 70X Sporting Service, which went from midday to 5 to 6. But the time between 5:30 and 5 to 6, I was trying to be very butch and reading all the sports scores and the footy scores and doing all that. Little did the listeners and the viewers know in those days, the scripts were on the desk, and at the same time I'm putting on the lippy and the makeup.
You had an English producer that Arthur Evans had brought out from England called Joan Pratt, and she used to run around with a stopwatch around her neck, and she knew nothing about sport. I think she was pretty good at children's programs. I don't know where she is now, Joan. And Joan Joan used to more or less leave you to your own devices, but she used to always insist that you had scripts written so she knew when to roll the film.
One of the the disadvantages of television is that, you know, if you're a private person and you want to stay that way, you've got no hope in the world. Yeah, every movement, every action is recorded, monitored, seen by somebody somewhere.
And usually worse than it was.
Yeah, probably, I suppose so. So even what you don't do, somebody will probably invent. It's rather like living in a very small country community where, you know, you roll over and you sneeze in the night, and 3 doors down, and the next day they're talking about the punch-up that took place in your place. You know?
Right.
It's that kind of situation, and so you're public property.
That must have come as a shock to you, though, to suddenly realise that you were walking down the street, because there was no one to
rush up to you. G'day,
yes.
How are you? You know.
In those days, I think you did just about everything. Well, that was our theory, anyway. Kids' programs, did a daily children's program. Arabella's Attic, I think, was the last one that I can remember doing. Women's programs once a week. A few specials on National Trust houses or famous homes around Tasmania. I think I did just about every special on agricultural shows in those days. I think I interviewed most of the prize-winning ladies at the various shows who'd won prizes for their knitting or their crochet work, or the owner of the prize bull or heifer or whatever it may have been. I did see quite a bit of Tasmania that way, and Flinders Island as well.
Probably remember most of the practical jokes that were played. And these days, I think the television perhaps, you know, there's not quite that family atmosphere.
Things have tightened up considerably,
just a little.
I assure you.
Give you one little example. When I finally hit that news set on a Saturday night, I read the news, and we had a sporting editor, and his name, I think, for better reasons known to me at this moment, I prefer to keep that confidential.
The fact that he's now the general manager of that station has nothing to do with that, of course.
You've let it out, haven't you? Well, David was a great practical joker, and he used to not quite do it himself, but get some of the camera guys to sort of sneak under the news desk and start removing some of the lower anatomy portions of my clothing. And you had one of two things to do, and that was either let them do it or slide from view underneath the news desk.
Did that actually happen to you?
It did. So one night I decided to get back on, you've named him, the general manager.
No, I said the general manager, you named him.
Sorry, David. But one night, you may recall, David, I did get back because I'd hooked up the big lighting hook underneath his chair, and his desk was, there's a drape right behind it, Jim, and I got the lighting hook, lined it up. When I'd finished my news, I went out, and he's right in the middle of sport, and of course I just kept dragging the lighting hook, and David kept vanishing from view. So I think that, but all those sort of things went, no, we didn't go too far, but you know, they were the fun things, and the generation of the early days of 9.
People out the back who we never see, who keep things going. One such man in the very early days of Channel 9 was Angus Robertson. Now, Angus was a little like the Scarlet Pimpernel. No one really knew where he was. He claimed that he spent a lot of time on Mount Barrow because, we're told, it was necessary to stay on Mount Barrow to see that everything worked. But the stories are that more than work went on Mount Barrow. So we thought we'd check out with Angus in Brisbane whether or not those stories were true.
In the early days, we were more or less finding out what the equipment would do. And it needed fairly constant supervision just to keep an eye on things, see what was happening. You didn't do very much most of the time. While there was a program, you did very little except watch it. But all your real work was done after the program finished.
Now, a lot of people used to sort of wander up to see that you were all right. Well, that's the excuse they gave.
Oh, from time to time people would drop in. Not in the winter. It was hard work getting there in the winter, as you well know. In the summer, we used to have a few visitors. I had some little reputation as a chef, and it was worthwhile coming up there if they gave me notice.
I believe at one stage the then manager, Arthur Evans, put out a memo saying there will not be parties held on the mountain, correct?
Yes, that is true. There were some rather happy times there, I should say.
Like most television channels established in the early 1960s, TNT9's operational facilities were few and far between. Although videotape was being used in a limited form by some channels established years earlier in other states, the cost of the machines, which was £36,000 at the time, made it necessary to delay the purchase of such equipment until 2 years after the station was opened. In those initial years, it was necessary to present every local production, including commercials, live to air, thus leaving no margin for error.
When you're thinking of travel anywhere in Australia, think of TAA. TAA's Friendly Way service begins on the ground and makes travel truly a pleasure. Even the youngest passenger enjoys personal service. For faster travel, finer service, fly TAA, the Friendly Way.
National commercials were all supplied to TNT9 on film and would be spliced into the program by a team of 5 full-time staff working in the station's film department. After the program had gone to air, all the commercials were taken out one by one and placed back in a complex filing system. Automation and advances in videotape has taken its toll on the film department of TNT9. Nowadays, there's only enough work for 2 part-time girls. Former film department staff have now been absorbed into other areas of the channel's operations. Memorable and not so memorable commercials were produced for national sponsors such as Colgate, Unilever and TAA during the 60s.
Fabulous Fab is stronger than dirt.
Fab, the modern power detergent, is stronger than dirt. Here's how it works. Just as this invisible shield protected me, Colgate with Gardol gives proved protection. Colgate helps fight tooth decay and stops bad breath.
Food goes better with fun, goes better with you, goes better with Coke. The real life one puts extra fun in you and everything you do, so things go better with Coca-Cola, things go better with Coke.
I'm bad and mean and mighty unclean, afraid of no one except the man with the can of Mortine. Hate that word, Mortine.
We're going to be warmer this winter. We won't be cold or too hot.
This is a commercial produced for the Hydroelectric Commission and played on TNT9 during our first year of transmission.
So we're going to be warmer this winter. Go electric to be warmer this year.
Go electric for economical heating for just the warmth you want. At the flick of a switch, electricity is a healthy, clean warmth. No fumes, no flames, no preparation, no cleaning up afterwards. Go electric this winter.
The clean cigarette that's better than ever. That's Craven Filter.
David, what was the effect on the television industry when cigarette advertising disappeared?
Well, we were prepared for it because it was phased out. The Broadcast Control Board, as it then was, gave notification that it was to be phased out and it had to appear after a certain time. I think initially we were devastated because it made up something approximating 20% of our total revenue. It was like taking a fifth of our revenue away from us. However, other advertisers appeared on the scene, and over a period of time it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. But of course it struck at all our thoughts about advertising, because there was a product that was freely available in milk bars and hotels and news agencies, and it established a precedent really that something that was freely sold couldn't be advertised on the electronic media, and the industry fought it very hard.
Anyhow, just to give these new Winfields a bit of a welcome, I'll hand you back to Boris and the boys in the band. Let her in, Boris, all done. Anyhow, have a Winfield.
Live variety programs have always played a large role in Nine's local production area. Recent years have seen Tasmanian New Faces, the Saturday Night Show and Grandstand.
I was always just one step behind you.
Almost live from the studios of Channel 9 in northern Tasmania, faster than a revolving TV aerial, able to leave cameras in a single bound, it's the Saturday Night Show. This week featuring the Tapestry Dancers, Paul Bessel, Alice Hardy, Lucy and the Illusionist, John McNally, John Stewart, the vegetating Alan Snail, the desirable Raylene Dogsbody, and the unbelievable Mick and Sid. And now, here are your hosts, James Cox and Gra Gra Goodings.
Good evening. That's Peter Kay, gone berserk. How's the audience? How are you?
Sound like
vocal.
We cracked it for a lively bunch tonight.
What can I do about my hairy phytostrum? It has sprouted certain sticky substances with bluish blotches. Well, Mrs. from Westbury, the only thing I can suggest is nature's little helper. Yes, you guessed it. Pest off.
This is where the fun begins, Jim. This is like the real thing, Jim, because you undo a little thing here, and she has a little nappy on, and as you can see, it's early gooey. See?
That's very good.
So that teaches young children how to be mummies, and you can wipe a little body.
Good evening and welcome to the first semi-final of Cup Prize Sam's Tasmanian New Faces. Tonight you'll meet Dawn Cooper from Launceston, Sue Sykes from Devonport, Mel Pitchford also from Devonport, and Jane Boker from Launceston. But first, would you welcome your host, Jim Cox.
Good evening, welcome to a very important night for us, because tonight is the very first semi-final.
Standing on the outside, I don't know where I'm going to, but I do know just one thing, and that is it's over with you. When you say that you love me, oh my, it's a beautiful day. Somewhere between your heart and mine, there's a window that I can see through.
Birthday came around in 1963, and to mark the occasion, the station ventured into a 3-hour live variety spectacular called Take the Cake.
You had your way, now you must pay. I'm glad that you're sorry now. And hello and welcome everyone to our first birthday party show. And that's just what it is, a TV party. And we've invited along tonight a lot of talented guests to help you and us to enjoy the evening. Now, we are not trying to produce a Perry Como show, a Review 62, or even a Sunny Side Up. We're just, as we said, having a party. So, if at times you see us but you can't hear us, or alternatively, if again at times you hear us but you can't see us, and we just keep talking along in the dark and singing and having ourselves a lot of fun, don't worry about it. Then again, if at times the picture becomes just a trifle confused, you think you're getting double vision, don't worry about that either. Don't send to the TV repairman, just bear with us because this is quite a big undertaking. As we said, it's a party, so join us and see who takes the cake.
Let's go forward 1 year to the time the station was 1 year old. Again, we had a party, which was wonderful. The party was raging about 50 feet away from the studio. Comes news time, and guess who's got to read the news? So I go and install myself in the studio, you see, and I think it was Fred Archer, who was the sole man in the control room. There was me sitting there with a pile of news to be uttered. And there was a large viewing window along this side of the studio, the small studio. I don't know if that still remains in its present form, but at all events, I'm halfway through the news service, nice and straight-faced, in spite of 3 or 4 drinks of me, doing a fairly soldierly job. And the glass wall fills up with idiot faces, led by Joyce Wayne. Then the door opens, the double doors, and I'm conscious, and I'm still reading very busily and very straight-faced, conscious of this body weaseling its way across the room at floor level, underneath the desk. Off come my shoes, off come my socks, and it's getting to be quite personal interference. Fortunately, that moment we had a film break, and so I bundled her out of the room. And I was ropeable. She could not break me because I was sufficiently angry that I was determined to finish that news straight-faced, and I did. And I went out and, in front of the entire assembled party, put her over my knee and gave her 6 of the best.
Well, next we have a very talented and very beautiful young lady from down the coast. It's Burnie. It's very pleasing to have a show like this because it's an opportunity to bring in folk from all over our viewing area. It's Miss Valerie Mole, and her choice of songs is a particularly pleasing one because very rarely we strike a new song which is destined to become a standard, and I think you'll agree this one is Valerie Mole with Moon River.
Well, thank you once again to the Newtones who've done so much, I think you'll agree, to make the show go tonight with a bang. Has it gone with a bang? You're happy, we're happy. It's great.
The early 60s was a period when rock and roll was king. The big names on the Australian showbiz scene included the Telethons, Cole Joy and the Allen Brothers, who, along with people like Little Patty, Digger Revell, Digby Richards and Patsy Ann Noble, appeared regularly on Brian Henderson's Bandstand. It was not only Bandstand that was popular with viewers in 1963. Locally, a young announcer by the name of Rod Thurley was responsible for hosting a music show on TNT9 called Teen Beat.
I remember one day a guy got electrocuted. Well, I mean, not fatally, but there was a short in his electric guitar or something, and it was just as they finished the number, and there was this scream, and the guy went straight up in the air, and I thought, wow, what a finish. It was only moments later we found out what had really happened. He was on the floor, didn't get up.
And this was on television, it was live?
Yes.
So what happened? What did you do?
Well, the public didn't realise.
One of the old cover-up?
Because it was exactly at the end of the number.
Well, one thing that comes to my mind is a young lass that we had on there as a guest artist. Yeah. We rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed with this lass, and She came in on cue and in key every time during rehearsals, but when it came to go on air, you guessed, you know.
I can remember.
She came in about 1.5 notes out of key.
Would the name of that song be Warburton Mountain?
I think you're right.
I still remember that. There you go, which goes to prove how old I really am.
Yep.
Roger, to do something like that, how difficult was it? Because as you said, you were a band who'd worked at teenage audiences. All of a sudden you were thrown into a new era. It was something you didn't know, and the people you were dealing with didn't know a great deal about it either.
No, that's true. It was, you know, it was a new thing really, and it was something, you know, as you say, we knew nothing about it, that's for sure. It was a new experience entirely for us.
Or goofs is the terminology used within the industry for a faux pas. Over the years, we've had our fair share of these. Up until now, they've never been seen on air, unless performed live.
Possums. Possums. I bet I know what's going through your mind now. You want to just rush out and choke your home, chock-a-block with wonderful, wonderful whirlpool appliances until the family can't. They have to crawl through the crevices, the little interstices between the whirlpool products, forcing their way, perhaps covering themselves with baby oil so they can slide through the cracks of these wonderful, bulging whirlpool.
Too long, Barry.
Jesus Christ. It's supposed to be very good. Bloody hell, it tastes like vinegar.
Corn. Unkind people might say I made my living from it, but Mr. Heinz has made something even more... Oh, shit. Shit on us. Shit. In your favorite cup.
Some people say it's more than a soup. Now, that's what I call a soup.
His face again.
Okay, Denise, take 5.
God, do we deserve a coffee break? I love coffee with cream, but I should never look at that. But Jesus, it's good. 11 calories a level teaspoon. And it really tastes really creamy. It's shit hot. No, honestly, get it for yourself. Coffee, mate, with cream. 11 calories. Get it in you. Bloody ripper.
Kindness. For the drink I have when they won't let me drink anymore. Know what I mean?
Mortine mentholated. Deadly to dogs. Extra kind to insects.
Hi, Big Al!
To Son of India to win with number 1, Petals Luck as the danger. Let's have a look at trotting at racing this week. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh.
Mrs. Scott, how long have you been judging at dog shows?
52 years?
You've been tied up with dogs 52 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Ray, where you going? The winner of the Launceston Cup, Brellos, 6-4 on favourite. $1.25 straight out, 75 cents the placing. Second place. Camera's going.
Walpamure paints make painting so easy, you could go bananas.
Ollie, how's it look?
Shit house.
Oh, you're marvellous, you are.
Dirty old trollop. Where's that beer? Oh. Another bloody bill. God spare me bloody days, I don't know.
Incentive award tonight, given to Tony Jones and Kevin Donoghue, because they got together and tried and did a pretty good job, and we enjoyed what they did. For our judges' comments, firstly to Peter Kay.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Well, for an ageing transvestite and part-time homosexual, I'm sure that you fully appreciate the quality of tonight's acts, and I know that next Saturday you'll be teaming up with going, "Powsy, wowsy, powsy." No.
Around 1800, at the first days of colonisation of Australia, sealing was a major industry. Man would come onto little islands such as this one, the sealing colony. Rolling? Right. Okay. In the first days of Australia's colonisation... In the first days of Australia's colonisation...
There you go.
In the first days of Australia's colonisation, sealing was a major industry in the first days of Australia's colonisation. Sealing was a major industry in the early days of Australia's colonisation. In Australia's earliest days, man would come onto little rocks like this and club the seal. Sealing was a major industry then. But now we come onto little islands like this and we bullshit.
All right, let's now cross down into the centre of the arena for the presentation by the Premier of Tasmania, Mr. Harry Colgate, to Ray James.
Ladies and gentlemen,
today in Burnie it was announced that the Master Warden of the Port of Devonport Authority, Tony Rundle, would make a takeover bid for the nickname Raincoat.
Let's ask you a question, darling. Come on. I'm just going to ask you what you think about
my new nickname, Raincoat.
I think it's just shown that the government can't run a referendum, let alone Tasmania.
Would you describe it as a fiddling of the figures at this stage?
Oh, I think that's probably about what it is. It's just taking...
Come on, let's go. Any viewers have any complaints, please phone John Stevens on his private phone number at home. We'll be flashing that on the screen a little later on.
Children's programs have always played an important role in TNT9's 21 years. The first year of operation saw the station producing a 15-minute live children's program each weekday called Children's Time.
I think they most probably put me off Children for Life. The idea of 50 children all wanting a packet of Eater crisps to tell you the most dreadful riddle or rude joke that their brother had put them up to asking on television was something else again.
Quiz Quest is now the station's longest-running children's program. The show was the brainchild of Neil Robson, now the Tasmanian Minister for Industry, Small Business and Fisheries.
I remember one night we were going along fine and we had the children on and they were answering their questions magnificently. And when they finished, they used to have to stand down and go back into the audience. Well, one young fellow who wasn't watching what he was doing tripped over all the control wires coming to the buzzer desk. And not only did he knock the plugs out, but he kicked all the wires off the end of the plugs. So there, Rod Thurley and I were telling jokes and talking about decimal currency and talking about banking in general for at least 5 or 6 minutes while they got the... And we ran a few commercials, but you can't do that all the time.
Quiz Quest is now in its 18th year on TNT9. In that period, many thousands of northern Tasmanian schoolchildren have appeared on the program. Quiz Quest has produced a number of hosts, including Rod Thurley, Philip French, Phil Martin, Graham Goodings and Jim Cox.
I should say that television got me known, but it's one thing being known and another thing being a Member of Parliament.
Occasionally, TNT9 would go to the children in school holidays and record location programs in areas outside Launceston, such as Scottsdale, Circular Head, Devonport and Georgetown.
I think I most probably remember from a children's viewpoint the train rides that we had to do. And these were all to raise money for the Miss Tasmania quest or various charities. And we'd get on a train at something like 7:30 in the morning and we'd travel for 3/4 of the day with 1,000 children. And about the only song we worked out in the end that every child in Tasmania knew was 10 Green Bottles, because they could remember the words to that. They didn't know Waltzing Matilda and they didn't know many of the other songs that children should know. But 10 Green Bottles they could sing. And it's something I've always remembered the words to.
Recent years saw Razzmatazz revive the train rides for a brief period before the Tasman Limited was taken out of service. Rupert Rabbit became a favourite with the children in the late 70s before being laid to rest a few years ago. This weekend, the Saturday Fun Show will introduce a brand new character to the children of northern Tasmania.
Who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E.
The Mickey Mouse Club entertained the kids of northern Tasmania for many years. The Disney organisation attempted to revive Mickey in the late 70s, but the end result had none of the original impact.
Well, I played Spin Evans on The Adventures of Spin and Marty. Roping and riding, or rocking and rolling. It didn't much matter. There was nothing Spin couldn't do. Marty was played by David Stollery, and our characters were complete opposites.
You have no right to block the roads anyway.
Spin and Marty started out as bitter rivals. But in true Mouseketeer tradition, we became best of friends. Another Mickey Mouse Club serial was Corky and the White Shadow. As Corky Brady, the sheriff's daughter, Darlene was living proof that a girl could more than hold her own when it came to fighting villains in the Old West.
Get back there or I'll blow your head off!
She was already the darling of the teenagers. And like most of her fans in the audience, the character Annette played was impatient to grow up.
Uncle Archie,
Yes?
I'm scared.
Scared? Scared of what?
The party. I won't know anybody there, and I don't know what to do or how to act.
Don't do anything. Just be yourself.
How will I know my love? How will I know my darling? Oh, Mr. Moon up above. How will I know my love?
That was the theme signifying the start of a new medium of news presentation for the people of northern Tasmania in 1962. Suddenly, newspapers and radio had a powerful and influential rival to contend with. TNT9 News had a small beginning. The station's first news editor was a 21-year-old journalist named Bruce Walkley. In those days, the news started around 6:45 and concluded at 7 p.m. The presentation consisted mainly of a newsreader on camera, reading stories cut straight from the newspaper, the occasional backup of a local film without sound, and overseas newsreel. As time progressed, film from the CBS Overseas Service and Viz News was flown in about 4 or 5 days after the event. Jeff Smith, Ian Robson, Keith Taylor, Rod Thurley, David McQueston and Mike Dunphy took subsequent turns in the news editor's hot seat. As recently as 1976, the national and overseas news was still seen 1 day later than other states due to the astronomical cost of bringing news to Tasmania the same day on the broadband bearer. Then finally, in 1977, a contract was sealed with Telecom, and for the past 6 years, TNT9 viewers have experienced the most comprehensive and up-to-date television news service in northern Tasmania, bringing those viewers local stories almost as they happen, of course together with the latest from national and overseas sources. The past 21 years has seen the TNT9 News Department grow from 1 journalist and a part-time typist to a staff of 12 full-time and part-time journalists, cameramen, typists, editors and presenters. A satellite studio was established at Devonport in the mid-1970s with a journalist and full-time cameraman, giving the station a much greater coverage of news events on the northwest coast. TNT9 News has for the past 21 years established itself as one of the most respected, quoted and unbiased services in the country. In that time, northern Tasmanians have seen events that have shocked, stunned and fascinated the world. The Cuban blockade of '62, the death of Pope John XXIII, the escalation of the war in Vietnam, John F. Kennedy assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald and the subsequent shooting of Oswald by Jack Ruby. Lyndon B. Johnson succeeds John F. Kennedy as US President. Khrushchev replaced by Brezhnev as first secretary of the Russian Communist Party, with Kosygin named as the new premier. Prime Minister Menzies retires. The rise of the Beatles and the death of Churchill. Australia enters the war in Vietnam. Israel devastates Arab forces on the Sinai Peninsula. Prime Minister Holt missing, presumed drowned, and succeeded by Sir John Gorton. Bushfire devastates Hobart. Neil Armstrong takes one small step for man and a giant one for mankind when he walks on the moon in July 1969. The Liberal Country Party coalition led by Angus Bethune scrape in to form the Tasmanian government after 4 decades of Labor government. Gough Whitlam's Labor Party swept into power after 25 years of Conservative rule. Australian troops withdraw from Vietnam, followed shortly afterwards by US forces. The Watergate scandals forced Nixon's resignation. Cyclone Tracy devastates Darwin. Hobart's Tasman Bridge is hit by the ore carrier Lake Illawarra, 12 dead. Sir John Kerr sacks the Whitlam government and names Malcolm Fraser caretaker Prime Minister. The Liberal coalition is voted back into government in a landslide election victory of December 1975. Colour in 1975 gave news an impact that no one could imagine some 15 years earlier. Unfortunately, many of our early news records have been lost or destroyed, However, we have managed to resurrect these memories for better or worse. Sir Winston Churchill, famed, respected and renowned. He was a member of the British Parliament for a total of 64 years prior to his death in 1965. Thousands of Britons mourned the great man's passing as he lay in state at St Paul's Cathedral in London. United States aircraft struck North Vietnam for the first time in 1965 in retaliation for Viet Cong guerrilla raids against major American installations on the central plateau of South Vietnam. As the 60s progressed, so did the escalation of the Vietnam War. Conscription was reintroduced by the Menzies government in Australia, together with a commitment to fully support US involvement in the war. Even the King of Rock at the time, Normie Rowe, found himself called up for 2 years of military duty in the army. Vietnam was a war that some said could not be won. Channel 9 News brought home the horror of it all, right through the peace demonstrations and moratoriums, through to the final withdrawal in 1973. Tasmania was not without its dramas either. This Fokker Friendship in 1965 had problems and was forced to crash land at Launceston's Western Junction Airport. Channel 9 cameraman Max Lamb scored an exclusive news scoop, arriving on the scene just in time to capture the dramatic moment on film. Fortunately, no one was injured in the emergency. 1965 marked the occasion of the first ever visit of an Archbishop of Canterbury to Tasmania.
I'm very conscious here in Tasmania that though it is such a terribly long way from home, it's at the same time wonderfully near home.
Tasmania's long-distance runner Bill Emerton created headlines not only in Tasmania but throughout the Western world when he completed a marathon run from John O'Groats in Scotland to Land's End, Cornwall. Emerton later went on to achieve further fame and fortune with a number of long-distance runs through California's Death Valley. Harold Holt spoke on Australia's involvement in Vietnam when he took over from Sir Robert Menzies as Australia's Prime Minister in 1966. 18 months later, Harold Holt was missing, believed drowned, off the coast of Portsea in Victoria. His widow, Dame Zara, later remarried New South Wales federal politician Jeff Bate. John Gorton, after a somewhat bitter struggle, succeeded Holt and in 1970 addressed a Launceston press lunch.
I would, as I said in Hobart, wish to go into the matter with Mr. Sinclair to see whether it is true or not that the Tasmanians are paying higher freights and carrying other sections of the line.
A major project in northern Tasmania during the mid-60s was the construction of the unique Batman Bridge crossing the Tamar River at Whirlpool Reach near Rowella. It was declared officially open in April 1968 and in that time has proved to be a valuable link between the East and West Tamar. The Avoca wallaby shoot became a major issue with conservationists and animal lovers during the 1960s. Each year, hundreds of shooters would converge on the Fingal Valley Township over a weekend, shooting as many wallabies as possible. Entry fees went to aid the local football club. The majority of wallabies shot were left to rot, while shooters kept their tails as evidence of their kill. February 1967, Black Tuesday. Hobart was surrounded by bushfires. Suburbs and townships were reduced to cinders. Over 60 lives were lost and more than 1,000 houses destroyed. Never before had Tasmania seen a disaster like it, and hopefully never again. Savage River on the west coast was the site of a major new iron ore find. 1967 saw early developments at the mine site as ore was converted to pellets and transported via pipeline to Port Latta in the Circular Head area for shipment to Asian markets. Speed ace Donald Campbell met a tragic death when trying to set a new water speed record in 1967. Convicted criminal to be hanged in Australia was Ronald Ryan, who mortally wounded a Pentridge warder during an escape attempt in 1966.
Ryan was dressed in the blue denim uniform of the prison. He had a white hood on top of his head but obviously at his request his eyes were uncovered. He was quickly put in the centre position above the trapdoor. The hangman stepped up, adjusted the noose in the correct position. His feet were quickly tied. The hangman stepped quickly aside and the lever was pulled.
This 50-year-old adventurer set off from northeast Tasmania to cross Bass Strait from Tasmania to Victoria in a kayak. It was to be the man's last great adventure. His kayak was found floating upside down only kilometres off the Victorian coastline. His body was never recovered. Longford is a northern Tasmanian township that's always had a flood problem. These floods during the winter of 1970 were no exception to the hapless residents of Longford. Television meant the death knell of the many hardtop theatres in Australia. Launceston once boasted 5 cinemas. By 1970, 4 of these had shut their doors, the last one being the Majestic, which bowed out in 1970 with a screening of Sweet Charity. The Princess Theatre reopened after a facelift in 1970 as Launceston's new live theatre. Coming under the jurisdiction of the Launceston City Council, the opening night featured the Australian Ballet in a performance of Swan Lake. The early 70s were a difficult time for Angus Bethune's Liberal Centre Party government. Holding a majority of only 1 seat in the House of Assembly, they were under constant political pressure from a strong Labor opposition led by Eric Rees. The resignation of the man holding the balance of power, Kevin Lyons, saw the Liberals relegated to the opposition for a further 10 years at the 1972 election. Newly elected Premier Eric Rees found it difficult to hold his emotion following a resounding victory and record personal vote in his electorate of Braddon. A margarine dairy board retailing war erupted in 1970 when rebel Launceston supermarket owner Basil Fitch openly sold more than his quota of margarine, riding on a constitutional agreement of free trade between the states.
Let me point out Section 92 of the Commonwealth Constitution, which states, part of it states, trade, commerce and intercourse among the states, whether by means of interstate carriage or ocean navigation, shall be absolutely free.
Wrest Point opened as Australia's first legal casino in 1973. However, a number of syndicates had ideas even before then on a casino for northern Tasmania.
I think, really, that whatever is built must be built so that it's a success with or without the casino. I don't think you should rely on the casino to make a place pay.
A young up-and-coming Minister for Defence spoke with David McQuestion in 1970 during a visit to northern Tasmania.
Well, I can't make any predictions about that at all. The Prime Minister made a statement about this. The first withdrawal will be before the end of November this year. And clearly this is something that the government will review as it believes to be necessary. But I believe that South Vietnam will need support for a considerable period, but I don't want to be specific concerning months or years.
Launceston was not without its share of city building fires in 1972.
The fire was first noticed about 5:30, or the alarm was given to the police and fire brigade at about 5:30 by a citizen passing through the main street who saw a policeman and tipped him off. The citizen kept going. The fire has gone right through the old building, which Fitzgeralds have occupied for about 8 years.
The Straitsman entered the Bass Strait Island cargo run in 1972, operating a service into Stanley.
I'm quite sure of this. The majority of people on King Island are fully aware and appreciate the difficulties today confronting us with small tonnage, limited ports such as Curry, with no chance of doing very much to improve it, and no chance at all whatsoever to operate vessels of this tonnage in there.
The vessel later sank in Melbourne's Yarra River due to cargo being incorrectly loaded. The Princess of Tasmania made its final Bass Strait crossing in 1972.
She's really been an excellent ship in every respect. The weather has never delayed her. She's always has delayed her, but it never made her miss a trip, actually.
Tasmanian cyclist Danny Clark just missed out on a gold medal for Australia at the Olympic Games of 1972 in Munich.
Yeah, I felt that nearly all the time I was over there. I started off pretty bad in my training, but I come good about 2 weeks before. Then I had a crash with the car.
How bad was the crash with the car?
Well, I cracked a bone in my little finger and tore some muscles in my back and in my shoulders. And for that week before the games, I wasn't going very good, but I just come up on the day.
There's no doubt that Channel 9 News has certainly played an important role in the affairs of northern Tasmanians over the past 21 years. The next 21 years will be even more pronounced in the area of news. Already in the United States, some television channels specialise in news coverage 24 hours a day. More emphasis will be placed on live coverage of news as it happens, with the advent of the communication satellite in 1986. While there are people on this planet, there'll always be news, whether it's good or bad. And we have no doubt that by the time 2004 gets around, Channel 9 News will still be around, although not quite in the same form as it's seen now.
Entertainment to the top end of the Apple Isle for 21 years, and it's my birthday today.
Oh.
I am
TNT9.
That's right, and congratulations on 21 years of television entertainment to TNT9 from Delvine, myself, and everyone involved with the production of Sale of the Century. Happy 21st birthday, TNT9.
Telethons were always a viewing highlight with northern Tasmanians for a period that extended over more than 10 years. The Northern Lights Appeal was conducted the Sunday prior to Christmas Day for more than 9 years, and in that time raised many thousands of dollars for the Roland Home for Boys, the Glenara Home and the Northern Tasmanian Home for Boys. Unfortunately, promised donations were not honoured to the extent they should have been, and the telethon was axed in 1973. Until February this year, when TNT9 raised more than $200,000 for victims of the Victorian and South Australian bushfires.
Good evening. Tonight, our report in southwest of Discovery comes from the rugged terrain near the Mount Discovery area. After a rather hurried ride by helicopter, I've arrived here at the jungle site of our party, led by the intrepid Professor Oliver Nutter. Professor, you're looking well under all this stress and strain.
Ah, yes, of course. You see, we eat well, and it has been very difficult.
What do you find the country like here? You've been in Africa, you've been in Alaska. What's it like here?
It is very difficult indeed, because we have all these mangrove swamps. Now, you wouldn't think we'd have mangrove swamps, but they're here, and it has been very difficult and very trying.
We discovered a lost tribe in the southwest of Tasmania. Most of that was done on the way to Mount Barrow. There's a little stand of trees, not more than a quarter of a mile long, which had a very jungly appearance to it. And the whole thing was shot in there, and I saw this afterwards, and we could have been in Africa or anywhere. The other one was a notice that appeared in one, I think, of the Melbourne papers, which mentioned that Tasmania had once been joined to the mainland by a land bridge, but the oceans rising had formed Bass Strait, but it was quite shallow. And we conceived the idea of having a scuba diver walk across the land bridge to Bass Strait. That was the best of them all.
A follow-up really to the Man Down Under, when I actually walked under Bass Strait, which was quite exciting. The next year we had a search for the lost tribe, and I think I was the jungle leader at that time, and with Angus Robertson we headed off in the bush looking for the lost tribe. It took a couple of attractive ladies with us, and this was a feature build-up to the Northern Lights Appeal, which were very successful telethons.
The entire staff and management would gather in the big studio, invite the viewers to make their donations, and they responded extremely well. I think it's something that Channel 9 can be very, very proud of, the money they raised over the period of the Festival of Northern Lights, and tribute should also be paid to the viewers of Northern Tasmania, who gave literally thousands and thousands of dollars.
The channel did involve itself in a number of special projects over the past 21 years, including a delayed telecast of the multicap quest, 2 live productions of Miss Tasmania, and numerous country music specials from various locations within our viewing area. Some had merit, and others suffered their problems.
Bound to be right on the night. You've worked and you've slaved, spent all that you've saved, rehearsed till you felt you could drop. At the end of it all, it's a flop.
We haven't got a Miss Charity. She was meant to be there. What a terrible thing.
1975 saw the biggest test of all for the television industry with the arrival of colour transmission. Millions of dollars were spent purchasing appropriate equipment to meet the change, not only by TNT9, but by all stations throughout the country.
We knew at some time colour television would be introduced. We certainly didn't know when, and really I don't think anyone really had any idea of the dates until perhaps, say, 2 years beforehand.
I think the change to colour, from the engineering point of view, this was the biggest thing that happened while I was with TNT9. It involved a most enormous change and tremendous disruption of the engineering facilities, and that things were able to be run during that time with things, bits and pieces sitting up on boxes and held together with bits of wire, was a tribute to everybody involved, really.
Sport on Channel 9 has traditionally played an important role in the development of the station, particularly on the local scene. A young David McQuestion was appointed 9 sporting commentator back in 1962. On a permanent part-time basis, he began hosting the station's one and only sporting show entitled Sports Club, seen Saturday evenings at 6:15. In those days, Sports Club mainly consisted of a roundup of football results, backed up by some silent film coverage of the NTFA match of the day, and possibly some film of the Launceston Gallops or Trots. If there was any time left over in the 15-minute program, normally a sports film from overseas would be included. But as time went by, Sports Club grew. The first major move was to extend the program to 1.5 hours and relocate it in the 3 p.m. Sunday afternoon time slot. The program's popularity grew, and after a while Sports Club became a regular part of Sunday's roast lunch, running from noon till 2. A panel of well-known former footballers and experts appeared with David on the panel segment of the program, which at times produced some very controversial and some extremely funny situations.
We had people like Jim Ross and Jeff Long and Noel Atkins and Arthur Hodgson and Jervis Stokes and Ray Stokes, and I can go through them all, that used to drive up to the studio, and that's, I think, how Sports Club really got started.
I think full marks must go to Dal for his match he played against Bruce. I think he put on a real good show.
Your people are watching you that way.
Real good show.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you, Bruce. It was a mighty effort.
Yeah, right. One of the, of course, Moose, as he's called, could perhaps win the return trip for Tour to Surface Paradise flying TAA. Next week, Heat 5.
There was lots of fun went on behind the scenes, and perhaps I should leave it to one of the other members of the panel to tell you that I think it was a belly dancer that was superimposed over the football film, and he found it rather difficult to describe the game whilst that was going on in the studio. Fortunately, the viewers didn't see that.
I remember the great Baldock era and the Coghlan era in particular, and as for the great moment, well, it would be the day North Hobart played Wynyard in the state premiership and the goalpost went down. That will always live in my memory.
Wouldn't have a clue. Camera equipment in the early 60s was somewhat primitive and made coverage of some sports most difficult.
When you started, you had cameras without sound.
That's it. Now, the old Bolex here.
Yeah.
That was the only camera. In fact, it wasn't this model. This is a reflex model. And we had one that wasn't a reflex model. And I used to go out and do the news and do the sport in those days with David.
Yeah.
And many a time I've stood on the boundary out at York Park and photograph the football on the other side of the boundary, and David would be sitting on the seat on the other side watching me.
Sport was a very strong part of the work you did in the early days, and I know you spent a lot of time with David. David commented how difficult it was on his part to call races that he'd never seen. But how hard was it for you to get into the photography side of sports that you'd never shown any interest in?
Oh, well, it had its problems like everything else, but we got by. I asked a few of the committee men, you know, different things. But the good part of it was, and these were good shots, even though I say myself, is the fact that when it was a mobile start, I used to get in the truck with the starter, and I'd go round and, of course, get the horses, and they'd be right up into your lens. You'd see the whites of their eyes. And then they'd start off, and away they'd go. And, of course, I'd be wobbling all over the place in this van. They said about 40 or 50 miles around Ilford, you know, miles an hour around the corner. And then, when he got room, he'd pull up near the old Stipe stand there, which is still there. I'd hop out of this van, clamber up into the top of the Stipes tower, a little bit of a tower, and I'd just catch them coming around the home turn for the finish.
The NWFU and NTFA football had a much greater following in the early days of television as compared to now.
In front to take the mark. Good mark to Puss Hadley. Millwood under the pack, and Don Millwood came in from the side, gives it over towards Guninin. He's in trouble, puts a handball straight out into the open spaces. A boot comes through from the bay and gives it over there to Dennehy. He kicks for goal, and Dennehy's shot's gone through for 4 points, and it's another goal for the Bay to put their second one on there. 2-5 at the moment. Scottsdale in command of the match now. 15 points clear of Cooey. Here's the throw-in. Donahue got the tap down nicely. Put it to left ball. Coming through hard's Howard for Cooey. He runs on in towards centre half for forward to kick it down towards the teammate. Walker comes through, misses the run of the ball. Mannigan in and takes it, puts it over there on the half-forward flank to the reservists. Come on. That's Lloyd Wish-Wilson. He runs in to have a look at the goals, has a snapshot, but he's a backman kick, and it goes out of bounds in the left pocket forward position. Back to finish this way too, hasn't he, being technical? Well, that was Harry Beitzel talking with Jim Ross as John Moles marks the ball at centre half back. Here's John Moles taking it at centre half back and shooting it in towards the centre of the ground. Once again, Cantel going up high. It's won away by the Tasmanians to Donahoe. Donahoe takes the ball, but once again the South Aussies take it. Play on, caught with the ball, and it was Plunge. The umpire Fisher decides for a bounce, however.
Pearden's in there for City South. Finally, Pearden gains possession. Shoots from about 45 yards out up towards the sticks. Palmer possession for City South. It's very, very close to the boundary line. A thrilling passage of play, but it's the Trove defence that's come clear. Here's Saltmarsh, though, and leading the race for the ball through City South. It's Saltmarsh, and he's tackled strongly. Umpire Clements says holding the ball too long. Free kick to the Trove.
But the 1960s and the 70s saw some great moments in the Victorian Football League.
Neil Smith's got it now, hand passes over to Baldock. Baldock tips in, grabs it, walks once. Good play by Baldock, trying to play them all. He's still got it. Play on, he's still got it. Giving the benefit. Grab here by Des Kennedy. He in turn kicks it down here where Neil's got a chance. He's all by himself. He screws it over to Baldock. And Baldock's done it again. A free kick.
A new champion was taking centre stage in 1970. He hailed from Perth, and North Melbourne had to sign a $75,000 bond before they gained his services. The Roos had a miserable year, but Barry Cable was the club's best player.
One up to the half-forward flank. Bremner comes right out from goal. And
tribunals were held at Harrison House in those days, but the guest list had a familiar ring to it. Big Carl got off this time. On the receiving end was Hawthorn's Neil Ferguson. St Kilda's Jimmy O'Day. Stephen Theodore collided with Barry Davis. St Kilda's Alan Davis.
Oh, he ran into a quick ball. Oh, they've gone in here.
Kevin Sheedy and Peter Crimmins. Norm Bussell gave Bruce Sherpig a cuddle. Peter Hudson got the ball and a pat on the back from Jeff Strang. Ray Biffin and Doug Wade tangled. The earth shook when John Nichols went down. Sherpig again, this time as he ran into Ian Collins of Carlton. Richmond's Graham Bond.
That's all. Good mark. Doc comes around on his left foot. Goes to the half-forward flank. Up they go. Beautiful. And Moore drives the ball around the wing. Over to Moran. A great mark. Moore now up towards centre half-forward. Hudson moves in. Goes up high. He's marked. Hudson is marked. Kick forward.
Hudson had plenty of chances, but none as easy as this shot in the dying minutes of the game.
He steadies. He kicks. Oh, my God, he's missed it.
He missed the goal and Pratt's record. Richmond won the semi-final replay easily before 92,000 people at the MCG the following week, while Carlton came into the grand final the hard way, eliminating St Kilda in the preliminary final. It was the grand final that rewrote the record books.
I'll give you the big tip. Right, play gets a big knock. It goes back to Robert Walls. Walls has his head in the corner, but it's called play. Goes driving down, looking for John Nichols and boy.
Brilliant goals.
And the big fella's almost taken.
Alex Jeselenko kicked 7 goals. Captain coach John Nichols and Robert Walls 6 apiece. Carlton's winning score of 28-9-177 was the highest grand final score ever. For the second year in a row, Richmond and Carlton battled it out for the flag. Collingwood had ended the year on top of the ladder, winning 19 of the 22 matches. But when it came to the finals, they lost both matches without uttering a squeak. Carlton, under captain coach John Nichols, had beaten Richmond twice in the matches leading up to the grand final and went into the match as slight favourites. It was to be remembered as the most cold-blooded grand final of the decade. Not since 1945 and the bloodbath grand final of South and Carlton had a match created such controversy. Laurie Fowler flattened Big Nick.
Sheedy Purnell's after him. Now breaks away, but the ball is grabbed up in high. He's getting the free kick.
And then along came Neil Baum, and he sorted out Carlton's chances once and for all.
Pushed away by Wade and Southby. And Southby goes high. Well, there's one too high. He's up in front, gets it down. It's taken by Baum. His kick smothered. Coming up.
In the end, the Tigers stood supreme, victors by 5 goals.
To racing now in the Launceston Cup of 1965 saw a win to Marco's Folly, ridden by Peter Bakos from Magdala and Caritzi. At Orphan in 1968, one of Tasmania's all-time great pacers, Golden Alley, produced a record time of 2 minutes 1.4 seconds in a special time trial with well-known galloper Solar Richard, ridden by Arthur Fox, acting as pacemaker. Ian Probert of Scottsdale was the winner of the 1964 Bernie Gift and was presented with the winner's trophy by the Premier of the day, Mr. Eric Rees. A young crew-cut Graham Gilmore, who went on to become a world 6-day cycling champion, took out the Bernie wheel that same year. In 1977, Danny Clark put in the greatest ride of his career, also at the Bernie Carnival.
Can he make it? Yes! 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 Oh! A magnificent performance!
Establishing herself on the world tennis circuit at the time was a budding young tennis champion, Helen Goulet, who showed her skills in this exhibition match at Launceston's Hart Street courts. Helen later went on to win numerous titles in many countries of the world, including 2 Wimbledon doubles titles and runner-up to Yvonne Corley in the National Women's Championships at Kooyong. The head of the river was rowed on the Tamar River in Launceston during 1964, when Hutchins won the coveted 8th title from Grammer and Friends. Tokyo 1964, and Dawn Fraser of Australia became the only woman in the history of the Olympics to win the women's 100 metres freestyle at 3 successive Olympic Games. Mexico City 1968, and Ralph Dubell of Australia wins a gold medal in the 800 metres. 1972 created history when Mark Spitz of the USA won 7 gold medals in the tragedy-ridden Munich Olympic Games. Moscow 1980, and Australia came back into world contention and was highlighted by a gold medal to Michelle Ford in the women's 800 metres freestyle and the men's 4 by 100 metres medley relay.
This could be the gold medal for Australia. It looks like it could be good. He's pulling away. He's pulling away. Neil going down. Neil Brooks in front of Cobbler Cobb. He's won. 5 for Australia.
The Deloraine Grand National Steeplechase in 1972 created Australia-wide interest when only one horse finished after the rest of the field either fell or was pulled up in front of the main grandstand the first time round. Ebon Beat was the only horse to finish the race, ridden by Gary Hill. To cricket, and Tasmania was admitted to the Sheffield Shield competition in the late 1970s. It was a resounding shot in the arm for Tasmanian cricket when in 1979 the state side beat Western Australia for the Gillette Cup in front of 9,000 people at the Hobart's TCA ground.
What a shot! That's right out of the ballpark. It's high in the air. It's safe. It's safe. Yes!
Sport has always played a major part in the programming at Channel 9, and next year we have the exclusive rights in northern Tasmania for direct coverage of the Olympic Games from Los Angeles and also the Winter Olympics, which will be held in Europe in February. Our direct coverage of national and international sport in recent years has proved extremely popular, notably our cricket coverage and also our Sunday coverage of VFL football from Sydney. What the future holds remains a little uncertain at this stage, but no doubt wherever possible, Channel 9 will endeavour to bring you the best sports action, internationally, national and overseas, in the years to come.
back to television?
Well, look, after quitting it after about 15 years, at the time I said, no way. I've done my bit and emotionally paid the price for it. Because it has its wonderful points, as you would know, of course. It also has certain inevitable penalties, and that is the loss of self, in a way, in that you no longer belong to yourself. You are perceived as belonging to the public who, thank goodness, watch you.
You must now look at this television station with a certain amount of pride, because what it is basically what you made it.
Oh, there was an awful lot of advice from an awful lot of people. I'm not unproud, but I can't say for a moment that it was wholly mine. I mean, all kinds of people. Taz Freeman, the chief engineer at the time, the board of Channel 9 were very helpful,
There's
very
always
supportive.
a figurehead, though.
Well, yes, yes, I suppose that's true. But no, and what's more, you see, the regional television stations right throughout Australia, the first batch of them, Ballarat, Bendigo, Shepparton, Orange, and so on, we got together very much, and we developed with our exchange of ideas.
Well, I think the television set is going to be used for more things than entertainment. I think the television set is going to be used, we're seeing wired cities springing up all over the world. England and France have said that they're going to get into cable television, and once you have the cable running into the television set, well, it can become a computer terminal. It could be used to order groceries, it could be used for feeding into the library, to teletext if you wanted to bring in teletext. We're going to see satellites. Australia will have its communication satellite in 1986. We can see satellites talking to each other, and also the ability of direct broadcasting satellites into the home. It's, you know, it depends how governments are going to let the technology that is racing ahead so quickly in front of us, how they're going to bring it into Australia. We're already looking in Australia at cable television, at RSTV television, radio subscription television. We've already got home videos, and I think we've got a very big percentage of home videos in this country. We're going to be looking at direct broadcasting satellites by the 1990, and that's not that far away. So I think that the next 21 years, there's going to be so much technology about that television set's going to be used for more and more things.
What the next 21 year holds for television is anybody's guess. Advances in technology are changing almost daily, with pay TV, satellite and stereo reception just around the corner. Programs will continue to go through whatever trend suits the ratings, whether it be game shows, soap operas or current affairs and talk programs. The past 2 years have seen astronomical prices paid for programs, especially movies and live sport. 1984 will see TNT9 with exclusive Northern Tasmanian rights to telecast the Olympic Games live from Los Angeles 24 hours per day, in addition to the Winter Olympics and live sport from around the world. We're proud to have been a major part of Northern Tasmania's television entertainment over the past 21 years, and take this opportunity to thank you, the viewers of TNT9, for supporting us to the fullest over that period.
with TNT Channel 9, 21 years old and proud to be Tasmanian. Stay with us now for comedy with Peter Davidson in Holding the Fort, to be followed by tonight's episode of Strangers.